So the way I kind of look at this in my own mind is to say that John is teaching us how to properly wear our seatbelts and drive safely. And I'm focusing here on how we really push our foot down on the gas and continue to build performance. So you need
That's
both,
a great analogy.
right, John?
Yes, yes. And, Sean, what's funny is sometimes clients perceive my role as telling them to take the foot off the gas. And that's not always true, because the way we approach these things is to be telling clients, look, if you're going to keep the foot down, let's make sure we have some airbags, right? Let's make sure we're putting our seatbelts on. Let's make sure we understand we can see the road clearly, right? Because all of those things help to protect against risk. And so it's not about taking your foot off the gas. It's about keeping the pedal down and making sure we're doing it right. I love the analogy.
Yeah. No, absolutely agreed, John. And that's why I didn't say that your part is putting on the brake and mine is the gas, because I don't believe that. So yeah, and as I take a look at other ways to keep that foot on the gas, I kind of threw a dart at the dartboard and said, let's look at an agent perspective here, right? So I would argue that what I'm talking about here in this section is equally applicable to everybody in your office. If you're running a collection law firm, this applies to your attorneys, to your legal staff, to your agents, to your GARN team, all the way up and down the channels. If you're running an agency, this applies to everybody in your office. And what are they accountable for, right? So, the key principle that I want to talk about here in this slide is to say, how are you using technology to establish clear goals, to have agreed upon KPIs, right? Let's have an understood SLA or a KPI where we say, this is about what should be expected of somebody in this process. And how do we create accountability around that, right? It's methods for tracking and accountability that say, if I'm responsible for this, I need the tools to be able to manage to it. So one of the key ideas here is that, do you have the technology solution in place where each layer of your team has, in a tiered way, access to the right data? So what do I mean there? I mean that the executive team, the management team, the shareholders, right? These are folks who need to be able to see at a high level what's happening in your company. They need to be able to track to overall goals of the company. Your managers and your supervisors, they need a layer of access that say, well, I have 5 or 10 or 15 people who report to me, and I'm ultimately accountable for their output, right? How am I effectively tracking that more often than monthly or weekly, right? To understand, where they are in terms of their goals. And all the way down to the individual agent or staff member, right? You are individually accountable and perhaps incentivized to these goals, right? So how are you staying on track?